I'm Felina.
And I'm Summer.
And you are listening to Broken Broken.
Because we're both.
The podcast about living your best life by getting real.
Hey, broken people. This is Summer. And Felina's still on sabbatical, so I'm flying solo with this interview. Today we'll have Christian, who self-describes in a Twitter bio as a Vietnamese, French, Polynesian, Tahitian, Indigenous, Pasifika author, comic book writer, screenwriter, spoken word poet, songwriter, creator, orator, and storyteller. Can you introduce yourself for our audience?
Yeah. What good questions did you have?
Just want you to kind of tell about yourself and your background and your writing. Just whatever you want the world to know.
Okay, background. I am a Vietnamese, French, Polynesian, Tahitian, Indigenous Pacifica person of color who is of Chinese ancestry. I don't really claim Chinese or French ancestry. I don't feel comfortable doing it because I don't really identify with the identity, because I don't feel I have a right to.
Okay, why is that?
The Chinese community does not claim me. Only one person has recently, so that's the difference. Before they didn't claim me at all, but until this one person did, who I know online on Twitter, it changed a little bit. But also I don't really know anything about being Chinese until this person gave me like a history lesson of being Chinese.
Okay.
The same friend who claimed me.
Mm-hmm.
Before I didn't know anything about being Chinese anyway, and I also didn't know about being like I didn't do anything to really uplift the community. So for those reasons, I didn't really feel I had a right to claim it until now.
Okay. Because it hasn't been part of your experience up until now.
Yeah, I haven't been taught anything about being Chinese. I've been taught anything about the identity. The only reason I say I'm French on Twitter is because people know a certain privilege, someone lighter skin who's still brown. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Because people automatically know I'm mixed European when they look at me.
Mm-hmm.
They know I'm something Southeast Asian, something Polynesian, because they see me and see I'm brown, but they still know I'm still a lighter shade.
Right.
My brother, he's the one who's darker skinned than I am, right? He experienced more colorism than I have in his life.
Right.
I do talk about that in the final version of the spoken word poetry book, because what you're reading right now is actually the second or third draft.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah. So can you tell us about your book that you're working on?
Yeah. It's a spoken word poetry book about being a displaced, stateside disconnected Vietnamese, French, Polynesian, Tahitian, person of color, diaspora or something like that. Diaspora, whatever, how you ever say that word.
I always mispronounce it, so I'm not going to be helpful there.
I don't know how to say it. It's about being displaced, being diaspora, being disconnected, cultural genocide, and generational traumas, which is really, really heavy stuff.
Yes, it is.
Which is why when I perform in SoCal in Orange County, I need Indigenous and people of color community people. Because they will get it more. They will empathize with it. If someone watches it and they're right, they'll get it, but they won't really get the experience of what I'm talking about. Not someone who's a person of color or Indigenous will. It's just the fact of how I feel. They'll get it because it's art, but they will never truly live the experience, truly being the shoes of how it feels to be like that. So also the audience has to be a certain age, 17 or older, because that's the topics and the themes which songwriter poetry book covers is not really for kids or preteens, because they're not really mature enough to understand generational trauma, cultural genocide, displacement, being disconnected, shit like that.
Right.
Some kids are more mature, but I don't really expect it to be a certain age group. I really wouldn't want to force that kind of thing on a kid though, in high school, or even in a young adult. Even young adult it seems too young for me. So 17, 18, So I know that at least at a certain maturity level, there's a certain nuance that spoken poetry gives you.
Right, kind of need to know their own place in the world in order to understand it, right?
Yeah, so it's it's how it's included in the final version. This poetry book in the forward, the personal forward I wrote for it about that. About how I wanted to actually one day fly over to Oceania, Pasifika, or Moana to perform in Hawaii, Tonga, Samoa, Hawaii, and Tahiti to Polynesian, Micronesian, and Melanesian audiences.
Have you ever been out there? Because you're in California, right?
Yeah, but I'm displaced.
But that's what I'm saying.
And also,
have you ever been out there? You weren't raised out there, right? You were raised
here, yeah,
in the 48.
Because my parents were war refugees, right?
Okay.
My mother, I discussed this in the spoken poetry book. She's adopted out of a Vietnamese couple, right? Okay. She was raised being Vietnamese. That's the experience of a lot of people who are Indigenous, not knowing her own culture, right? And that's actually an act of anti-Native racism. That's my mother, Vietnamese couple, my grandparents who raised her. If I think about it, actually, that's part of the reason why I don't really have a good relationship. I used to have good respect for them, a little bit, a lot, but it's been lessened because I know I should have told them the truth, but the war happened, right? The Vietcong came in and they destroyed everything, and the adoption papers were probably lost in the destruction, and my mother did not even know the last name, how to track her mother down, her real mother.
So did she have any information on her story?
No.
Okay.
She didn't learn until later, from certain things, but how do you figure that out now? You're displaced. I talk about actually my mother was an outsider in her own land that was not even hers, right? She was displaced from two homes, from Tahiti and Vietnam, and that's just more traditional trauma to unpack for me.
Yeah, we talk about adoption periodically on the show because because of my experience with adoption and the adoption community, it just kind of happens that way, but it does compound those issues for people, especially when you have those big gaps in knowing your own story. It can really create and exacerbate those traumas.
Being adopted, right? Not being raised on your own cultural identity, not being raised being taught your own language, spirituality, customs, traditions, etc., what have you. Taught how to be Indigenous, Pasifika, particularly. How do you heal from that? That's what I wonder about my mother, right?
Right.
Because my mother, she's one of those people who who choose not to believe in mental health and get in therapy. And I want her to go to therapy, but it's not something I can force someone. They get to choose themselves to go.
Right.
I chose to go to therapy because I want to heal from that experience, even though it hasn't touched me directly. It has through generational trauma. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but that's something she has aside, and my father has aside for themselves. Because my father was displaced also, and he's also someone that doesn't really believe in therapy. So
what is his situation? You said he's displaced also. What is his background?
He's a Vietnamese and Chinese. My ancestors on my Vietnamese and Chinese father's side were orators, storytellers. For generations, we were artists, thespians, singers, dancers, playwrights. So me being a spoken poetry poet and a songwriter who's an orator and spoken poet, I carry on that legacy. I carry on that tradition. So I connect with the ancestors. I don't really know what my French, Polynesian, and Tahitian ancestors did though. So I'm trying to figure out by reconnecting.
I think it's great that you're so open about the fact that you're trying to reconnect and make that and learn these things and navigate this, because I'm sure you've seen as much as I have of people who who are disconnected, but in some way I guess feel some sort of shame about that, and so they try to cover it up. And which is I think a sad situation in itself. So I think it's pretty inspirational that you're letting this play out so openly for the world, in your journey to figure all of this out.
It's how I'm connecting with my clan, my nation, and my family. In Polynesian Tahitian culture, right? Polynesian Indigenous Pacific culture, your clan, I'm trying to learn how to pronounce these words, right? So just bear with me. I'm trying to just say the English version of the words. I feel I don't really know how to pronounce them correctly just yet,
Right. That's okay.
So your clan, right? Your nation or your family are three important connections to who you are, right? Because still being Indigenous connection links bonds, what makes you Indigenous, not blood, right? Blood makes you French, Chinese, and Vietnamese. Connection links bonds, what makes you Indigenous Pasifika, right? Me choosing to reconnect, me choosing to learn the language, me choosing to learn spirituality, me learning to learn the customs, traditions, connect with Indigenous community. I used to not really know how to explain that was displaced connected, right? Because I felt like they wouldn't accept me knowing that I don't really know about my identity. I learned from other people who are Polynesian that it's my journey and they would accept me, right? No matter the place I am in this journey. And I decided to be honest with them, saying this place, saying that I'm diaspora, saying that I'm disconnected, saying that saying that I sometimes sleep at night and I wonder how it would feel to actually talk to my deities, because both sides of my family, my Vietnamese ancestors and my Polynesian ancestors, were both forcibly converted by French colonizers, imperialists, and missionaries, right?
Right.
My Polynesian ancestors had their culture. I talk about this in the spoken poetry book, but they had their spirituality banned, language banned, culture, tattoos banned, everything.
Right.
Different culture is genocide, right? It's considered genocide by everybody, UN, United Nations, whatever have you. Yeah, my Vietnamese ancestors were forced to convert also. So me practicing choosing to be Buddhist, choosing to be polytheistic, right? Or what people might consider pagan.
Right.
It's me trying to it's resistance, it's resilience, it's defiance, right? It's me choosing to stand up against something that was forced on my ancestors, where they took everything, they took part of their identity from them, right?
Right.
Because spirituality matters to many cultures, and being forced to convert it just cuts you off for your ancestors a lot.
Yes.
Right. I'm just learning how a little bit now about how kind of more connected I feel, because I'm actually learning how to practice spirituality. I'll learn more when I actually go to the Polynesian Islands, but as of right now I'm just learning on my own, trying to figure out and not learning from people. I've been writing the spoken poetry book for a long time, for a couple of years now, right?
Okay.
You said background. I am an author, I'm a comic book writer, I'm a screenwriter who writes about books, graphic novels, comic books, TV shows, movies about Indigenous, POC, disabled, and or LGBT characters, right?
Nice. We need a lot more of that.
I'm writing a comic book series or graphic novel series about a Japanese, Colombian, Polynesian, Hawaiian, and Tongan Pacific Indigenous superhero who is polyamorous, gender fluid, pansexual. It's called Avasaturi War. It takes place in the 41st century. I've been writing that since 2010. Right? It's me. It was I've been writing a long time because depression, PTSD. The art didn't really flow because I was still traumatized.
Right.
And that's why I stopped writing the spoken word poetry book back then, because I still hadn't had enough therapy to where I actually decided to sit down and write what I felt about being displaced. So when therapy, a couple of years of therapy, went back, did more years of therapy because I had to unpack more issues. First time therapy, I had to unpack the depression, anxiety, PTSD. Second trip, I had to unpack internalized racism, anti-native racism, homophobia, transphobia, and ableism. And that's not fun at all. And so I went back also to unlearn toxic and abusive traits of other people, because like I internalized a lot of like how abusive, toxic you were. But I was passive aggressively abusive with my toxicity, you know, and like I admit that with my brother that I was not like I was toxic myself, right?
Right.
And we kind of heal from that because I realized my family matters to me, right? Because they're part of my family, and you know, before I ever really know about my clan or nation, like they're my first link to being Indigenous, right? You know, and I feel like I, you know, want to heal because I know better, you know?
Right. And that's important. And that's part of what this show is about, is encouraging people to take whatever steps, you know, are necessary for their own healing, you know, which of course varies by whatever their situation is, but we want to encourage people to do that. And so you mentioned that you've been getting therapy. Has that helped with the depression and the PTSD?
Yes.
Good.
I had a relapse a few days ago, but I know how to deal with it, you know. I have a certain, like, positive coping skills to deal with it. Like, you know, writing art, do martial arts, exercising.
Right.
Writing poetry, writing music, just dealing with my emotions physically in a physical manner.
Can I ask, how old are you?
25.
Okay, yeah. So you're pretty young. It's really good that you're taking those steps and learning those things now. I didn't until I was in my mid-30s, and I think if only somebody had taken me to therapy when I asked for it at 15, my whole life could have been different, you know. So I think that's wonderful. You can, you know, get more in control of your own life when you do it younger.
Yeah, it's not really easy to admit that you need help. I didn't really do it until like you know, high school or college, right? Like dealing with like the therapy helped, you know, admitting I was like not okay,
right?
Admitting that I had like a lot to unpack, like the fact that, you know, it will help me like heal. You know, I can like break the cycle. I can like raise kids with my partners, because I'm polymorphous, and like future partners in a like non-toxic, non-abusive environment, because I know better. You know, I can be better.
Right.
And I admit that I want that. You know, I want to have a healthy relationship with someone, right? And me going to therapy is me taking the first step to healing. And, you know, my ancestors and my descendants will feel better about that.
Absolutely.
Because I am both ancestor and descendant right now. I feel like more connection with them. Writing this book or poetry book, because like I found out more about my family, histories of my like our oral tradition of like being orators, storytellers. You know, our tradition of telling stories, telling myths, telling songs. You know, telling like all that, and I wanted to hold that tradition, and learning about it made me like a good reconnection. Especially still why I want to learn more about my Polynesian and French ancestors. You know. What do they do, you know?
And what sources are you being able to find in order to gather that information?
Finding people who are from Polynesia, right? And real life and online on social media, both, and like just like asking questions, but knowing I had to go a certain way about it because I'm displaced. I can't ask questions I want to ask differently if I was, you know, wasn't displaced. You know, if I was actually connected to the culture more, I could ask a certain way. But since I'm displaced, you know, and disconnected, I go about a certain way than I want to. You know, there's certain nuance I have to like navigate.
Right, be aware of as you proceed.
Yeah, that's kind of why I didn't want to reconnect, because I was told that by people who are colonized, right, who didn't decolonize yet, because to me, decolonization is not just physical, right, it's mental, emotional, spiritual, metaphysical.
Right.
People are colonized, right, Polynesians who are racist to Melanesians and Micronesians. When they use those terms to separate us based on color, because of like what colonizers taught to us, right?
Okay.
It's the leftovers of colonialism, imperialism, neocolonialism, and occupation. I was told by those who, you know, who were colonized a lot about my blood quantum. I was really pissed about that. Like, I am not less Polynesian than you are because my identity, I have a racial identity. being Chinese, Vietnamese, and French. My story is not less than yours because I'm mixed. You know, I do not uphold the blood quantum, blood rotary nonsense of colonizers. I talk about that in one of the spoken poetry parts about how my experience, because like I've been told that a lot, and I was like, where do I keep this pure blood talking about? In a jar, in a bottle, so I can shove it in your face. When you tell me things about that, like make me feel less than who I am because I'm mixed. You're doing the colonized work for them, right?
Right. And are you finding this more within those communities with people who are more assimilated? Because that seems to be the case in my community, as the people who are who have more cultural connection don't seem to put as much, don't seem to put that weight on blood quantum. But those who've lost the culture, that's what they're holding on to as being their identity, and their connection is, well, I have more blood quantum. Is that the same, what you're finding?
Yes.
Okay.
Those who have a strong, sense of self, right? They have no interest in upholding us. They know they're Polynesian. They don't need to assert this kind of aha, I got more blood than you, pure blood. And it was like, what?
Yeah.
I hadn't really explained.
Right. Well, I think a lot of our communities are just now recognizing and starting to deconstruct that colonization. Like you said, it's hard to remove that.
To decolonize, we really have to be self-aware. And most aren't, sadly. In the final version of the spoken poetry book, I use Chinese, Vietnamese, and Polynesian Indigenous Pasifika myths to represent all of me, to represent me being claimed by someone in the Chinese community, to represent me, finding acceptance, self-love, and my identity of being Vietnamese, being Chinese, and being Polynesian Tahitian, right? And it explores more myths like the fairy, because the phoenix, because the title of the summer poetry book is Heart of Phoenix, Soul, it's Heart of Dragon, Soul Phoenix, and Blood Ocean Water. The final version is called Heart of Dragon, Soul of Phoenix, and Blood of Fairy Ocean Water, because the phoenix is from Chinese myths, not Vietnamese, right? The dragon is from Chinese and Vietnamese myths, but the fairy is from Vietnamese myths, and I kind of subverted it. Okay. Right, in the spoken poetry book, I switched it, because my ancestors in my dreams tell me, because they speak to me in my dreams, that our myths is we're from dragons and phoenixes, as well as fairies, right? Because we're Vietnamese and Chinese descended. Okay. Right? And I kind of used that in the spoken poetry book, the final version at least, and I kind of wrote about more about, the myth of, having a body born of ocean, earth, and sky, as some Polynesian, and having a heart of dragon, soul of phoenix, and blood of fairy, ocean, water, as some Vietnamese and Chinese.
You can contact the podcast at brokebrokenpodcast@gmail.com. The Broken Podcast can be found online at www.brokebrokenpodcast.com, on Twitter at BrokeBrokenShow, on Instagram and Facebook at BrokeBrokenPodcast. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube.